I'm Gary Stearman. Welcome to Prophecy in the News. Today we have a very special guest, and we're going to talk about something I know you've heard about, the Ark of the Covenant. And we want to welcome to Prophecy in the News a very special visitor. We've spoken with him once about an ark on a mountain, maybe Noah's Ark. Today we're going to speak about an entirely different ark, the Ark of the Covenant. And Arch, you believe that it resides in Ethiopia. You have been to Ethiopia, and you have spoken with the guardian of the ark. How did that happen?
Well, actually, Ethiopia has claimed to have it for 2,700 years. So it wasn't discovered. They claimed it happened. But they're reluctant to give any evidence to anybody who comes because they say it's not for them. Why should we give them evidence? It's not for them. So on this particular trip, which was 8 months after climbing Mount Ararat, that we thought God gave us such significant evidence that maybe He'll allow the Ethiopians to give us evidence. And that's why we went there.
And you went there specifically to sort of corroborate or follow the leading of the Lord, I suppose. That's the only way we can interpret it.
It's exactly the way it was.
So, you go to Ethiopia. What can you expect if you go to visit the Ark? Because everybody knows that it's not really in Ethiopia. It's already been taken back to Israel. Or has it been taken back to Israel?
Well, let me start out by saying I have not seen it in person. Even though I've been probably 10 feet away, there was a stone wall and I haven't seen it.
All right.
But they brought a tremendous amount of evidence to allow us to believe that it's still there. And again, we go back to what the Bible says. Not what science, not what legend, not what people say. What does the Bible says? And I think Zephaniah makes it clear that it's in Ethiopia today.
In Ethiopia today. Okay, well, let me read, and I've got my Bible open here.
Actually, let me read first.
Okay.
Because we always talk about checking things with the Bible, but what if the Bible contradicts itself? And a Bible not contradicts itself, but one version contradicts another sometimes.
You're holding the NIV.
I'm holding the NIV. And we talked about that in the story of Noah's Ark, how they had two different stories. One from the east, one's to the east.
Okay.
Let me read from Zephaniah 3:10. Now the temple will be destroyed one more time. This is at the during Armageddon, destroyed one more time. And the new Jerusalem comes down, and then just like the first temple was built, all the nations come and bring gifts and offerings. Zephaniah 3:10 in the NIV says, from beyond the rivers of Cush. Now the region of Cush included Ethiopia, but also includes Sudan, Egypt, Somalia, Djibouti, all these evil countries. All these evil countries, it says, God says, they will bring me offerings. Okay, so Zephaniah 3:10 NIV, the whole region of Cush, when the temple comes, all these evil people are bringing me offerings. Now, read what the King James says.
King James says, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering.
Singular, again.
Yeah, my offering.
One thing. So God is saying that on the dedication of the new temple, my people from the Ethiopia, that means it's not in Israel today, right? Because they're going to be coming from Ethiopia, and to the new temple, they're bringing my offering. And wow. They say we only have, on the first time when Queen of Sheba came and brought gifts to the first temple, the Bible said, now her region covered the Saudi Arabia Peninsula, Eastern Africa, huge area, extraordinarily wealthy. She brought 5 shiploads of gifts. Now Ethiopia says, we have nothing except the Ark of the Covenant. Wow. And that's our life now, is to guard the Ark of the Covenant until God's ready to give it to the new temple.
So, you're fresh back from an expedition to the mountains of Ararat in northwestern Iran, where you've taken pictures, motion pictures, and so forth. You are flushed with success. You're on a mission now, and your next stop is in Ethiopia. How do you get off a plane and go to where the Ark is?
Well, first of all, it's about 500 miles north of the airport where you land in Addis Ababa.
Okay.
So you have to fly up to Axsum, Ethiopia. But the story goes, and some of it, the story is mythology, some of it is true, I believe, And the part that's true that we can prove is that the Ark of the Covenant left, the last time it's mentioned in the Bible was when the temple was destroyed in 586 BC.
Right.
We believe that the evil king of that time did not want the temple defiled. The Ark of the Covenant was removed when he ordered all the evil gods to be brought into the temple. There was some godly priests. They took the Ark out of the Covenant out of the temple before it was filled with evil gods. They took it to the Elephantine Islands in Egypt on the Nile River. And if you go there today, the remains of that temple is still there with all the carvings on the walls telling the story of the Ark of the Covenant there. Then it followed the Nile River down, which means goes to the mouth because we're south, it's the other direction, into Ethiopia. There is an enormous lake called Lake Tana. It's so big that when we're flying over it in a jet, you can't see the shorelines. That's how big the gate is. And on there's an island. It's probably a quarter of a mile long, maybe 400 yards wide. And that's where the Ark of the Covenant went. And it went from sometime in 400 BC to sometime in 800 AD. It was on that island. The priests still live on the islands. The generations, in fact, National Geographic went there several years ago, about 11 years ago now, took the DNA and it matched the DNA of the priest in Israel yet. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
But it sat there, and when we went to the island, my son and daughter-in-law were on the island, and when the National Geographic came, they refused to talk, refused to do anything, and if you watch the National Geographic story, they're very stoic and don't want to give anything. When my son came, they said, "We want to show you some things."
So now you're talking about meeting with the keepers of the ark, the people who are in charge of it, and they had a welcoming attitude toward you instead of being standoffish, which I would have expected. After all, they are guardians. But for some reason, they welcomed you. Now, nobles, kings, queens, presidents, and so forth have visited this place, and they are treated very curtly. You're saying you were given a welcome.
Well, yes, except for there's two things. This is on the island on Lake Tana, not where the ark is today. Okay? So very few people ever go there. It's a very remote area, very few people go there. But still, even there, they still have many artifacts from the original temple. They have the sacrificial knives, the large forks used in the sacrifice of cattle. They have the blood bowls. They have Solomon's seal on them. They have the breastplate of the priest. And they brought them out and let us take pictures of all of them. And they're all on our DVD, and you can see them.
Wow.
Then in 400-something, they don't have the timeline exactly, but 400-something, they built a new temple way up in the mountains at 6,800 feet in Axsum, Ethiopia. And it was taken off of the island and brought up to Axsum, where it is today. When the Ark of the Covenant was set on a rock, the rock split open, and water started coming out of it. And it's still coming out today. It has never quit since they put it on it. And that's when the priest comes up and he sprinkles holy water on you. It's coming from the water out under the Ark of the Covenant that has a crack in it.
So this is at Axsum?
Axsum.
And people have come in a state of, I guess, religious worship to visit with the keepers of the ark. And they are sprinkled with water, they're given a blessing, and that's about all.
That's correct. And many people from all over the world, kings, queens, heads of the UN, have all come. But just as God is not a respecter of men, neither is the guardian who prays in front of him. So each day, it's just another person who's out there, and he sprinkles the holy water on them if they come out. However, for some strange reason, he gave us special favor. On our first trip that we went over there, we had his personal aide as our interpreter because he spoke English. When we went up to the gate, and he came, stood on the other side of the gate, sprinkled, said something in his language, his native tongue, sprinkled the holy water on us, turned to leave. And I said, "Sir," and he turned around, through his aide, who spoke English to me, I said, "You have dedicated your life to protecting the Ark of the Covenant. 8 months ago, I risked my life to find the other ark. Let me show you some pictures." I reached in my pocket and took out some photographs, not really realizing he had never seen a photograph in his life. We stood right next to, almost cheek to cheek by the fence as I held the pictures and explained what was on the pictures. And this went on for 5 minutes. Now at that time, my wife was looking around, and the guards were all getting edgety. You know, they had their AK-47s because they've been attacked several times over the last hundreds of years. And they didn't know what was going on, except for the priest didn't seem to be in fear, but I spent an enormous amount of time on their scale with him. After about 5 minutes of showing him the photographs of the pieces of Noah's Ark, all of a sudden he shakes like that and he says, "I have to go. When can you come back?" Well, this is a real difficult place to go to, and I hadn't planned on coming back. I thought this would be just like around a one trip, you know.
Yes.
But I said, well, I'll come back in 4 weeks. He blessed me, and we left. As we're walking away, I said to my wife, I said, well, it looks like we're coming back. I don't know why, but it looks like we're coming back. The interesting thing I found out then, on my first trip, I thought, I wonder if God's going to let me see the Ark of the Covenant. Because, they've had it for all these years. Yeah. And, man, we did see Noah's Ark, I believe. We certainly saw a big petrified ship. Maybe God has allowed us to see this. It wasn't until that trip coming back home, I discovered Zephaniah 3:10, where God said he will give, on the dedication of the new temple, the new Jerusalem that comes down, he will give his offering to his son. And I thought, who am I to ask God to see the gift that he gives? And it became a tremendous burden on me. I went back with a totally different expectations and state of mind as my first trip. Mm-hmm. When I came back on the second trip 4 weeks later, 7 o'clock in the morning, as we were walking to the gate where he was at, he was walking to meet us. As he was walking, he was bending down and bowing and saying something in a very apologetic tone. I obviously couldn't understand what he was saying. So I asked his aide, I said, what's he saying? He said, well, he's apologizing. I said, yes, but what's he apologizing for? He says he's apologizing because he said they did not tell him your name until after you had left. When they told him your name, he said, that's the person that God's been telling me was to come see me, and I needed to talk to him. And he's apologizing for you to come back. And from that point on, started our conversations. Each time I went there, he sat down on a rock with me and explained what he saw, what the Ark of the Covenant is like, what the Ten Commandments is like, and the story unfolded.
Wow. But let me just interrupt to say we're talking to Arch Bonnema. He comes from Texas. And by the way, many of you have probably heard of McKinney, Texas, but he's a world traveler. Been to Ethiopia, you said 7 times, I believe.
7 times, yeah.
And we have a DVD that we would like to offer you for your gift of any amount. Arch has chronicled his visits to talk with the guardian of the Ark of the Covenant in Axsum, Ethiopia. Now, you've got us hanging by a thread.
Yes.
Because you said you've sat with him many times and he's discussed with you the Ark, the physical Ark.
Yes.
Its contents, if any.
Yes.
Tell us, I mean, you've got our attention.
Well, isn't it interesting that we've all seen the movie The Ten Commandments,
right.
The story,
yeah.
and we've seen Hollywood's version of the Ark, the angels and the Santa to come back. As he described to me the Ark, because he's never seen Hollywood's version,
yeah.
As he described it, it fits exactly the way the Bible says it, and yet it's very different than what the Hollywood version is. In the bottom 2/3 of the Ark was made of acacia wood. The acacia wood is gone. It's all dissolved, rotted away, it's gone. The top third in the cover was pounded gold. The gold is all there. The form is still all there, but there's no box. So alongside of it, on this rock, sits the Ten Commandments. They're no longer on the inside. They're now on the outside,
so
sitting alongside of it. 2
tables of stone still in existence?
2 tablets, and they're right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, my first question is, what does he say the 2 tables of stone or tablets of stone look like?
Well, he describes them as being about 18 inches tall when he holds them. They're about 11, 12 inches wide, and they're about this thick, 1.5 inches too thick. And they are a brown, and he points to the ground, sand-colored stone. The Bible talks about when God wrote on it, he wrote with his finger on it. I had always pictured as a kid when you go to the beach and play in the sand, you're writing the sand with your finger. That's probably what it looked like. But he said wherever God's finger touched on the stone, it changed the molecular structure of the stone to precious stone.
Wow.
Now, he didn't say molecular structure. He just says it changed it to precious stone, to ruby, to sapphire, to diamonds, to all the different stones. It's interesting because God describes the children of Israel each as different stones. He talks about the New Jerusalem coming down. The foundation is precious stones. And now he says each one of the Ten Commandments, when God's finger touched it, it turned that part of it where his finger touched into precious stone.
Now, this man says that the Lord gave your name to him.
Yes, I never had that before. And at that time, I was speechless. And I just felt, you know, I didn't know how to respond because I've not had that happen before.
So I want to know, what is it that the Lord wanted him to do? Did the Lord want him to give you the complete description of the ark, of the contents?
I don't know the answer to that, but he did. Here's the most interesting time, though. After my 5th trip, we had sat down, talked about a lot of different things, talked about my family. He has no family, never been married. He's been guardian for 40-something years, became a guardian in his 30s, never leaves the temple again until he dies, and he's buried right outside of it. But near the end, he's talking about, when we're talking about Zephaniah 3:10, because he believes that that's them. And he says, someday I will give the ark, not point arch, but I speaking himself, will give the Ark of the Covenant for the new temple.
Wow.
And he's getting old. You know, he's in his 70s.
Right.
So I said, well, how soon do you think that'll be? Now, up until this time, he's always very quiet, bowed, and his voice is very reverent, very quiet. Then I asked him how soon it would be. All of a sudden, he stands up straight. I mean, I took a step back. It caught me off guard. Stands up, his eyes got big, and he said, soon, in a very strong, powerful voice. He said, soon. And I said, well, how long have you felt this way? Not long, but I feel it soon. Now, he doesn't have TV. He doesn't see the armies lining up on Israel's border getting ready to attack. He doesn't have internet, no newspaper, no magazine, nothing except the Bible. That's the only book he's ever written. He doesn't read the ones by all the scholars that you've had in your program on Last Days Prophecy. He just prays in front of the Ark of the Covenant every day. And he believes it'll be soon that they'll be able to give it.
Now, you said he prays in front of the ark 3.5 hours a day?
Every single day.
Every single day.
And when he goes in to pray, they wrap a rope around his ankle so that if he dies in there, they can drag him out.
Really?
Then the new guardian, who's in training now, will go in for the first time. When he goes in for the first time, he never leaves the temple grounds again until he dies. I believe he's the 34th guardian, 34th or 37th guardian. All the rest of them buried right outside and the guardian, that's in the last 700 years because they count themselves a new nation.
So he openly describes the appearance of the ark to you without reservation.
Yes.
He tells you what it looks like. Now,
yes.
Everybody has heard of the ark called, as it is in the Bible, the mercy seat, where the blood, the high priest went in on the Day of Atonement, sprinkled the blood between the cherubim. And now we think in terms of the cherubim. We've seen Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, so we know what the ark looks like, right?
Hey, did you know that that's largely a true story?
Really?
Hitler called himself a Christian. He murdered the Jews in the name of Christianity. He read the Bible and believed the parts that fit him. He believed that if he could only capture the Ark of the Covenant, he could defeat the American and the British.
Wow.
So he had Mussolini sent in the elite SS troops at the beginning of World War II to go to Axsum, Ethiopia, to find the Ark and bring it back so they could go to war with the enemies. Mussolini's SS troops came there, spent 5 days in this little village, couldn't find it, but what he did find is there were some enormous steles, carved Ethiopian rock gods from a very evil ruler that they had in 600 AD. They were still there. He took those instead. And of course, didn't have quite the effect he was looking for. He lost.
Got the wrong blessing.
And unfortunately, now they're bringing him back. On our first trip, they were just starting to bring him back after Italy, after all these years since World War II. They're bringing back the evil gods. I was trying to explain you're better off not to take them back, but You know, it's part of their history.
So we've all seen the Hollywood version of the mercy seat, and you mentioned to me before we went on the air that it's called a mercy seat. You should be able to sit on it. Well, the way the cherubs are fashioned on the Indiana Jones version, you really couldn't be seated there if, in fact, it's to be taken as a seat. So the guardian told you how the cherubs are arranged.
Yeah, well, the Bible says the cherubs sit on the ends, and they have the wings extended, and their heads are looking down towards the center. And if you look at the Hollywood version, it fits all those descriptions. However, if it's the mercy seat, and it clearly is, where do you sit? Yeah. The guardian, who's never seen the Hollywood version, said the angels are on the ends of it, in the corner. One wing is extended forward, one wing is extended across the back, so it forms a seat.
With a back.
With a back. And the heads of the angels are looking towards the center of the seat. The same description the Bible has, only a totally different look. Although the dimensions are approximately the same, because it was measured in cubits, and the dimensions are approximately the same, the way he described them, but the top of it looks very different than what Hollywood has.
So you have the top of the ark, and you have the cherubs, and then you have the two tablets, and the tablets you mentioned are written on both sides.
Yes.
How does he describe that?
He said that whenever they did things in the old days for the temple, they made two of everything. And that's why there are two tablets that are exactly the same.
Oh, they're exactly the same. Okay. And he said they're inscribed on both sides in precious stone.
Yes.
Wow. What else do you have to tell us? You've had 7 visits with him. What exactly is he building up to in your latest visits?
Well, here's the interesting thing for me. One temple's been gone, one ark has been gone 5,700 years approximately. The other one's been gone in roughly 2,700 years. All of a sudden, we discover evidence of both of them 8 months apart. What is the significance of that? You know, when Jesus died, buried, rose again, he only spent a couple weeks on earth. The Bible says very little about what he did. But one of the things he did is he went to his disciples.
Yeah.
He said, "Put your finger in my nail holes, Thomas. Put your hand in my side, Thomas." He gave evidence. He didn't want anybody to go without evidence.
Yes.
I think the whole purpose of God giving us this extraordinary evidence of both arks, so close at the same time, is he's coming back again soon. Every time I give these talks, the most common comment on the first talk I give, the most common comment on Noah's Ark is, "Wow, this shows the Bible's true." Of course, my comment is, yeah, and the Bible's not done. There's more of the story to get fulfilled.
Right.
Well, the Ark of the Covenant story, I talk about the fact that Jesus is coming back again and the evidence that this is the last days. And the interesting thing is, even people in churches and youth groups come up to me and say, "Why don't we ever hear about this?" I spoke recently to 1,300 students up in New York, and 1,300 kids who are head of the youth groups of churches, not just any kids. All of these were youth group leaders of all the churches in upstate New York. And they came together for a conference, and when I spoke, they said, "We've never heard this before. Why isn't anybody in the church talking about it? All that we hear is Jesus coming back again, period, end of story. Why don't we know about all the evidence going on?" Amazing, isn't it?
It really is. Now, you're within months of being in the mountains of Ararat in Iran. Within months, you were down in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Now, the odds of that happening sequentially the way it did, and then having the guardian say to you, "Come see me again."
And to bring out the evidence that they have never given anybody else before. The breastplates of the priest, you know, with the seal of the first temple. The knives, the seal of the first temple. The bowls, the seals of the first temple. And they had more, some of them on the island, but they also had some of them where the Ark of the Covenant is today too. And they showed us there too.
Have you ever been invited to actually look at the Ark?
No, and if I was, I would not take it. Not because, unlike the the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, the power isn't there. It's just, to me, the Ark is so special because, and the only person who sees it is the guardian, and he's dedicated his whole life. I would not ask, nor would I want to go see it at this point, but I can tell you what, my heart believes it as if I have seen it every single day of my life, that they have it.
So you have experienced 2 arks, one high on a mountain, one in a very special place where it's lodged until I guess the Lord decides differently. And the Lord has given you a kind of mission, which you're then giving to other people. This is amazing to me that you would share this with us in this way.
Well, I feel there's an extreme sense of urgency that time is short right now.
Wow.
I mean, even if you are 80 years old, I'd say time is short. For all of us, it's the same time frame. I think the majority of people who hear this story today will be alive to see the return of Jesus. And every opportunity, and I would talk about this on my Noah's Ark climb, because I almost died on the mountain. I said, God, there must be a person for you to have me coming up here. You know, if I get off this mountain, I'll share the story every opportunity you get. That you give me, I'll give it. And but I feel a tremendous sense of urgency that our time is short. And if this would give the evidence that God wants, I'll give it. And that's why the tapes, like you said, the DVDs, it's for any contribution or no contribution. You know, we live in tough times. People are laid off a lot of times. If you don't have any money, just request it. We'll give it to you. If you can give an offering to Prophecy in the News, that would be great. But we want to get the message out.
And the 2 DVDs, one's called The Stone Ark. It's about the petrified ark at 13,000 feet high in the mountains of Ararat in northwestern Iran. The other is called The Ark of the Covenant, and it chronicles all of the details that Arch has been telling us about his travels to visit the Guardian of the Ark. And I suppose you have a picture of the Guardian of the Ark and a lot of artifacts around there and lots of...
There's lots of pictures on there, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what. Just call the number at the bottom of your screen right now and ask for these 2 DVDs. I'll tell you that they're wonderful. Arch, any final words? We've just got about a half a minute.
Yes, you know, these aren't the only important archaeological discoveries being found. If you're reading the news, there's all kinds of them all over the world, especially in Israel, proving that the Bible was true. And I think the timing that all this is happening so close together, not just the 2 arks, so many things are being discovered right now.
Right now. Gary Stearman, along with Arch Bonnema of McKinney, Texas. Arch, thanks for being here today. It's been wonderfully inspiring, and I tell you what, I'm excited. I'm going to go back and look at these DVDs myself. We'll see you soon. Keep looking up. Prophecy in the News is a viewer-supported ministry sponsored by our many friends across America and in your area. For your gift of $10, you can receive a special edition of our current program on an audio CD, or for a gift of $20, we'll send you our programs on DVD videos. For either order, call the 800 number on your screen right now.